Hi, welcome to the Los Olivos Wine Merchant and Cafe, where you not only get to taste California's Central Coast wines, but you also get to meet the winemakers. And today I have the honor of introducing you to Aaron Walker to you. Aaron Walker is the winemaker for Pali Wine Company, and we are going to be featuring 3 of Pali Wine Company wines throughout the month of September. We're going to be having these wines at 20% off. We're going to have a tasting flight of all 3 wines, and also you can buy them online. So just go to shop.winemerchantcafe. But the best part is you're going to get to actually meet Aaron and learn about his winemaking style and how he got into this industry. Fun story. So Aaron, let's start off by asking the infamous question.
Yes.
If you can sum up an aspect of your personality that gets infused into the wines in one word, what would that be? Dun, dun, dun,
I know.
dun.
I thought I was going to have more time with it. The first thing that comes to mind is easygoing, which I tend to think of myself as being
the Hawaiian
in a lot of
shirt,
right. Yeah,
you got kind
you
of
pick up on
California
that,
style.
right,
Okay.
Yeah. So I am Southern California, born and raised. Spent a lot of time in San Diego before coming up to the Central Coast, and I did grow up, on the beach and that surfer lifestyle in the '80s, and
that's a lot of
Los
what
Angeles.
the Pali wines kind of embody.
It does,
that
and that's a part of it too. Exactly.
That experience of California.
Right. So, our namesake Pali, short for Pacific Palisades, which is Southern California, right between Santa Monica and Malibu. But it also goes with the philosophy of our company, of the winery, from the owner. This comes from my boss, the owner of the company, of the winery. He's always had an attitude towards our winemaking that we want our wines to be very, very of very good quality, very high quality, but also accessible and reasonably priced. And to that end, we've always priced our wines as low as we possibly can without putting ourselves out of business.
Yeah, you want to make them approachable and not be too.
Exactly, and so having wines at
it's
different
like in
price
California,
points
people
too.
always say like, well, how should we dress going here? It's like, well, any way you want, really. You can, dress it up, and you can be dressed like a gorgeous Pinot Noir, and wear flip-flops like a rosé.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and we've got the whole spectrum right here on the table in front of us too.
Look forward.
You got it.
While we're talking about it, let's go ahead and taste this rosé.
Perfect. Yeah, this is a brand new release for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a 2018 rosé of Pinot Noir that first time we've bottled this as.
You've made rosés before, but this is the first. Okay, this is your first release of this PCH.
PCH. It's a brand new label that we just introduced this year with this release in 2018. So it's we produced about 600 cases with the idea that we could put it out into distribution and sell it a little bit more broadly than in the past the rosés we've produced.
So if I was one in your,
production.
How many tasting rooms? 5?
Well, we're up to 5 now. Yes.
Flies.
Yes.
Yeah, they're California flies. So, 5 tasting rooms.
Correct. Yeah.
So if I'm going to one of your tasting rooms and tasting this, what would be your tasting notes? What would you?
Well,
prepare me
first
for?
of all, it's designed for
it's
summertime, especially Southern California, summertime drinking. So it's light and refreshing. It's it was picked at low bricks to produce a low alcohol rosé, so it's not going to be high in alcohol, which when it's got a nice chill on it, it goes down real easy.
When you're making dinner, when you're outside by the pool,
Absolutely.
You're not eating anything, this will be the perfect wine.
This is a great
really
cocktail wine, as they say, or summertime daytime wine. If you have those little plastic Govino cups, you bring this to the beach with you. It's got the screw-off cap. It's perfect
Easy.
for that. So.
Yeah, picnics. It's beautiful.
But yeah, thank you. We purchased the Pinot Noir grapes from a small family vineyard up in Templeton area, Central Coast, and then picked those grapes, like I said, at a low brick, so that we produce this lighter, brighter style of rosé, and it's not a sweet rosé either. It's, it's meant to be dry and crisp, and refreshing.
It's very refreshing.
That's all those things.
And that's the method that you were talked about here on your back of your label is the.
Well, there's the Saugny method, which is a bleed. That's a small part of the way this wine was made. So rosés can be made in 2 different ways. The majority of this wine was made by whole cluster press. So we're actually taking the grapes right when they're harvested and throwing them into the press and squeezing all the juice out. And limit a little bit of skin contact, and we get this rosé. And then we add to that some barrels of the Saugny, which is a separate method of making rosé, but it's also something we do on our high-end Pinot Noirs when we're making our more expensive red wines.
Yeah, I've never heard of this
We bleed
before.
off about, it's actually very common, and maybe a lot of winemakers don't like to talk about it because maybe they feel like it's cheating, but we don't have any secrets with our winemaking, so I don't care. But it's you bleed off. It's usually around 10-15% of the juice right after you crush up the red grapes and you get it all into the vat that it's going to ferment in. You bleed off whatever you decide, 10 or 15% of that juice, and if you do it within the first 12, 24 hours, you get a pink wine. So the skin contact has been very limited.
Right.
And so and what that does is concentrate the red wine that you're making. It concentrates. You have more skins and less juice, so you get more concentration of flavors. You end up making a wine with bigger mouthfeel. It just helps improve the quality of that wine. But then you have this leftover rosé wine that you bled off, and so you want to do something with that. And so that's what we're doing is we're adding those leftover, that bleed off wine, the Saugny. We add into the whole cluster pressed. So we're using both methods of making rosé and blending them together in this bottle, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of all over the place, but there's these two methods that come together when we create this wine.
And this is just like one of 20 wines that you make to keep track of. But as far as
probably like 40, but yeah.
Oh gosh, wow. So just so our audience can taste this, like peach, watermelon.
Yeah, there's citrus, lime zest, those bright citrus flavors. Definitely those those sweet summertime stone fruit flavors, and great acidity.
And I don't like sweet rosés. So this one,
I'm with you on that. Yeah,
really, really beautiful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was the whole idea. We want
very refreshing for these
very
September days.
Easy drinking, easy going wine. Yes.
So, your story. You started off getting education at University, San Diego State University.
Yes.
And you were going to go into teaching.
Yes, among other things. So to give you a little indication of how little direction I had during college, I changed my major 3 times. I finally settled on teaching.
Time was running out. You had to settle on something,
the
right?
parents were going to stop paying for tuition. And,
pick something.
And that was it. And I enjoyed working with children quite a bit, and I did work in school settings. And but yes, I settled on a degree for teaching. However, I didn't end up going into education
at all.
At all. No, I aside from working, while I was doing my bachelor's degree, I did some student teaching on the side, but. No, I never got my credential or any of that because I started working in restaurants, and that was a way to pay the bills during college.
Loved that. So he graduates from
they never
college
let me forget
and then he goes to work in a restaurant.
Yeah. Well, they're okay with it now because they get a fair amount of wine and trade, so it all comes back eventually. But had I not gone to San Diego and worked in restaurants in San Diego during college, I would not have ended up here today. And that's what short version of the story is what led me into winemaking was working in restaurants and discovering wine through that route.
So did you have a wine? So many people have like a wine that they said, oh, like I want to make something like this. I want to be a part of this.
There were a few wine. There wasn't one wine that made me decide I wanted to start making it. There was certainly a couple wines that I remember tasting that just got me interested in. I want to learn more and I want to know more about this wine. And that's when I was working down at the restaurants in San Diego. And for me, there were Napa cabs. There was like Height Cellars, Martha's Vineyard, some of the mid '90s cabs that I tried were some of the first memorable wines for me. Plump Jack was one of those, and so I really gravitated to those bigger California style Cabernets at first, and then as I discovered wine a little bit further. I started tasting a lot of the Pinot Noirs from the Central Coast, and specifically from Hitching Post
wines. So
how
did you end up here? How did you end up going from San Diego to Santa Barbara County, San Ynez Valley?
Again, long story short, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, it was her idea. We had met living in San Diego separately, but met working
give
together.
Credit where credit is due. Good job.
Well, it's her dad who is the one that introduced me to a couple of the winemakers in this area that gave me my first opportunity to work a harvest back in 2006.
So you had connections.
So I did, yes. I was very fortunate. So I've got to definitely give credit to my father-in-law, Gray Hartley of Hitching Post Wines, and he was the one that introduced me to, it was Jenny Bonacorsi who gave me my first harvest job in 2006. So it was my wife, Emily, at the time my girlfriend, but I was looking at culinary school. I actually wanted to go stay in the restaurant business, maybe open my own restaurant, something crazy like that. I don't know why people would do that. That's
no idea.
But at the same time, Emily, my wife or girlfriend at the time, suggested, my dad might be able to get you hooked up at a winery job if you want to try out harvest, something like that. So we made a few trips up here. I met a number of people, and I was very interested and definitely wanted to try it out. Moved up here for that first harvest in '06. We said we'd give it a year. If it didn't work out, so be it, but it definitely worked out. I was hooked immediately. I started working for a few other people after the Bonaccorsi harvest ended. I worked for Seth Kunin off and on up until I was hired by Pali in 2007. So Seth was one of my big mentors.
So what's your favorite part? I mean,
too.
after wanting to be in the wine industry, you said, okay, this is where I want to be. It's stuck. What is it about it that you really that you like, that I am not going to change my degree here again. This is the degree I want to have. This is my life.
Well, some of it, it was having worked other jobs. I worked in office settings for a couple of years. I sold advertising. I worked at a newspaper. I tried sales. I tried many other jobs and nothing stuck. And I always went back to waiting tables. And for some reason, I really enjoyed it. I got into winemaking, and what I really enjoyed about it was the hands-on physical work of it, and seeing the results of what you were doing, and then being able to drink those results.
Well, that's what I'm starting. It looks like there's an underlying current here. I mean, why would people want to get into the restaurant business? Why would people want to make wine? I mean, there's the glamour on the outside, but the hard work that goes into it is a whole different story.
Absolutely.
But the underlying thing is just the joy in seeing people, which it sounds like is what, to me, you're saying you found, like, all that hard work, it pays off. You get to see people going, oh, that's great. You're making them happy.
Right.
It's a business of making people happy and bringing people together.
Yeah, and I forget that sometimes when I spend a lot of time in the cellar, and then I do, I go out, spend time in our taste rooms, and maybe if I've been gone for a month or two, and then I get back in front of our customers, and it's reinvigorating for exactly the reasons that you're saying. It makes,
makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, it gives me more motivation to go back into the cellar and keep
get ready for the next harvest.
Yeah, exactly. But there's also just a pure satisfaction of the hard work, and even if you're dead tired at the end of the day, you're able to get up the next morning and do it all over again, because it's a very rewarding and satisfying job if you're into it. But it's not for everybody.
So for Pali, you are doing something different. Not just you, but the whole Pali team is having a different focus with how you get your wines out there, and it's very, very modern way of looking at selling wines. That we are in the experiential stage of marketing, essentially. Right. So it sounds like you've just honed into that. You're making the Pali experience very personal with your 5 tasting rooms in different areas throughout Southern California. Is it all Southern California, right? It's,
San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara.
Here.
I guess we're missing Ventura.
Lompoc, you have one too, right?
Yeah, where the winery itself is located.
You have a really fun tasting room in the Funk Zone in Santa Barbara.
That was the original. That was the flagship, yes.
So so you're not going to be distributing necessarily, hopefully we still get to
No, we will
pour
continue
your wines,
to distribute wines, and that's exactly why we want.
But to select few restaurants, and then you focus to the directly to the customer.
Right.
Direct to consumer.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, we're when we first started as a winery, it was the focus for our sales was through the distribution system and the very traditional way of selling wines. And more recent years, we're not alone. A lot of wineries have looked for ways to increase their DTC or direct to consumer sales and decrease their distribution sales because it's much more profitable. And so that was a big motivation for us to start opening more tasting rooms, and that was
But that also probably gives you a little bit of more leeway to experiment.
It
and
does.
Have fun with your wines,
exactly.
doesn't it? Because you don't have to please what's the latest trend in the restaurant. You can say, you know what, this is who we are. So what kind of things, how has that changed who Pali is? It's
changed a lot. We've started creating these communities at each of our tasting rooms where we're building wine club membership, and it's creating these communities of wine club members, and to help to get them to keep coming back into the tasting rooms as well is our wines on tap, which is where we become very experimental with our winemaking. So we have 8 taps at all of our locations. We have refillable growlers. If people like a certain wine, it's only going to be on tap for maybe a month or 2. We only do a barrel or 2 at a time of certain blends, and then it's gone.
So they can go once a month and try something new every time.
That's right. So what's offered on tap is constantly changing, and we're doing more experimental, funky wines like you were starting to ask about with skin fermented, white wines, Pinot Grigios that come out orange because they're fermented on skins, or wines that are a little bit sweeter because we do have customers coming in asking for sweeter wines, which is not something we typically have made in the past. Or one of our best sellers on tap recently has been something I put together called the Zinfelder, and it's a 1 barrel each of Zinfandel and Dornfelder, which
fun.
A lot of people don't even know what Dornfelder is, but a lot of our customers do because we've been making it now for a few years. And the Dornfelder is always one of our best sellers, but yeah,
I'm just saying it.
And they just
Dornfelder's
work perfectly together, and that it made a fun name. And so
cool.
it's things like that we're doing in our tasting rooms that keep people coming back in and keeps it exciting. And we're taking kind of a brewery approach to the experience in our tasting rooms.
Very fun.
Yeah,
I want to go.
Yeah, you should.
Taste your wines here, but I want to go there too.
But like I said, these wines, select few, some of our bottled wines are always going to be available through distribution, so that we can still offer them to fine establishments such as yours.
Lovely. Well, just to wrap everything up a little bit of the history of you and where you got into this, that right turn, U-turn you took in your life.
Yes.
That was back in 2005 that you... 2006. So Pali's been Pali since 2005.
Correct.
Then in 2006 you came to the helm of the
winemaking. 2007 is when I was hired by Pali. So 06 was my first vintage working in the industry, and then 07 I was hired by Pali.
So you had a really easy, quick run right into it. You're lucky.
They threw me into yes, I am, but I was also thrown into the fire. 2010 I was officially given the title as winemaker for Pali, but I have been running the show at the winery in Lompoc since 2008. Hired in 2007. I worked under the original winemaker.
Okay, so one last question then.
Yes.
How has that fly one, he wants some wine.
Some
too.
camera time.
Yeah, right on your forehead.
Of course. Here, let me get it.
So, no, I forget what I was going to ask. What was I going to ask? One last question. The pesky fly. I don't remember what it was.
I'm sorry. Or we should blame the fly.
Yeah. It was something having to do with sorry, I can't remember. Well, I know what it was.
Okay.
So how has your style changed from when you got thrown into the fire to the winemaker that you are now? How has your style changed? How have you evolved? How's it changed?
My style of winemaking, or my style as a person, or my style,
no,
the way I dress? Or
they probably are all affected. So,
I mean, we are going on 12 plus years now. Things have definitely changed, but so one big change was early on when Pali started, the original winemaker, the wines were made in that style, his style, which were very big and at the time very popular style for Pinot Noir. Very big, over the top, so high alcohol, very rich, but wines that wouldn't age very well and kind of tended to fall off a cliff. So one thing that we changed early on when we moved away from that original winemaker, and when I started taking over the winemaking, was to throttle that back a little bit, but not too much that we lost who we were. And so we're still very proud California Pinot Noir producer, and we're not trying to emulate Pinot Noirs from any other area in the world. We're trying to showcase Pinot Noirs, especially from this area, Santa Barbara County, and even real specifically Santa Rita Hills, and we get a lot of sunshine, and we want to show that in our wines. And we're not trying to make wines that are light and soft, but we want them to be in balance and still drinkable and enjoyable, and then also wine that can age well and gracefully. And to do that, we've toned down that ripeness, and so picking the grapes not quite as ripe, picking a little bit earlier, and so that's one of the biggest changes over the years, but without going too much in the other direction where we're going, really low alcohol, because we still want to, we're still proud of who we are and the wines that we produce.
Well, I encourage you all to come have a taste for yourself at the Los Olivos Wine Merchant and Cafe. Try them here. Or stop by one of the Pali tasting rooms, although they won't be 20% off during the month of September, so
unless you're
take
a wine
advantage.
club member.
unless you're a wine club member. But taste them first here, then go there. How's that?
Yes, please.
Well, cheers. Thank you
Cheers.
for being part of our
Thank
featured
you.
winemaker series.
Oh, we're very honored. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Great wine.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.